Welcome back to the channel. Today we got another good one. We got FP-5 Flamingo, Ukraine's new missile from Mega Projects. Another great channel. Excuse me. Get it down to the description right above there. You'll find that subscribe button. Do me a favor and click that for me. Or if you're on your TV, just head down there and do it. I know it takes a few extra button presses, but I'd appreciate it. Or if you're watching on a phone, just tap your screen and there's probably a little subscribe on there. It'll pop up. You'll be find it nice and easy. And then smash the like button while you're right next to it, because, why not? Anyways, we'll get into it.
If the missile you're launching at the enemy is easy to take down because it's not very fast or stealthy, the least you can do is pack it with so many explosives you basically guarantee complete destruction if just one of them breaks through the enemy lines. And this, at least, is the basic logic behind the FP-5 Flamingo, Ukraine's new heavy-hitter missile. Officially unveiled and used in action in August of 2025, this missile marks a change of direction in Ukraine's missile strategy. Experts, both domestic and foreign, hailed its arrival. But they warn against obsessive optimism because while the Flamingo packs a hell of a punch, it also leaves a lot to be desired. This missile, which is constructed mostly of...
That thing looks sick. Is like what? The only missile, the little bottom fuel tank, and then the rest is just all bomb? Because if so, that's kind of nuts.
Recycled ordnance and aircraft parts is threading a
that just gets it off the ground.
Between success and failure.
I see.
Just before we continue today's video, I want to give a big thank you to Bessie on the screen now. Design. The Flamingo excels in two key areas: warhead capacity and range. The missile is armed with a 1.15 ton or 2,500 pound warhead, which is just a comically large amount of explosive material for a single missile. For comparison, the BGM-109 Tomahawk land attack missile, which is a reliable American long-range missile, packs about 450 kilos or 1,000 pounds of explosives, and the Flamingo comes with 2.5 times that. Because of its incredibly heavy warhead, some experts believe the missile utilizes a BLU-109B bunker buster, which was used by Israel to kill Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah in 2024. The bomb is filled primarily with tritonol, a mixture containing 80% TNT and 20% aluminium powder, which increases the complete heat output and impulse of the TNT,
we always love it when a terrorist gets murked,
proving the bomb's destructive performance. The bomb doesn't go off immediately upon impact. Instead, the hardened steel casing allows it to penetrate into the ground first, after which the fuse triggers and the payload detonates. Of course, to carry this massive warhead, you need to equip your missile with a massive, powerful engine, and the engine used with the Flamingo is believed to be the Ivchenko AI-25. This engine is comparably much larger than engines on similar missiles, and it's used with several aircraft, including Turkey's combat drone, the
So this missile has the same engine as a fucking fighter jet?
Bayraktar Kizilma. The use of a large engine, one that measures
3.3
meters in length and 62 centimeters in diameter with a weight of over 350 kilos or 770 pounds.
We used to just use glide bombs that would have slight amount of, distance to be able to guide to their targets, and you'd just drop them or fire them. And then they go, and you wouldn't really need anything this large. This is just excessive. This is just trying to beat anti-aircraft defenses and get to your target as fast as possible.
Allows the engineers to skip miniature turbojets and turbofans. These propulsion systems are usually preferred for long-range cruise missiles, but they're really expensive, unlike the AI-25.
Well, they're
huge.
The
AI-25 was incredibly available for Firepoint to purchase in huge numbers from stockpiles. Firepoint officials said that they found thousands of these engines at dumps and landfills around Ukraine. In a very practical and literal showcase of the adage, one man's trash is another man's treasure, Firepoint did not restore these engines to full usage, which would allow them a maximum flight time of 10 hours, but only enough power for the Flamingo to go for 4 hours. They replaced the titanium parts with cheaper materials to save both time and money, and engines that were deemed too damaged
of course they did
for square parts. Since
on par for the Soviet era, that Soviet technology, that the benefits of it all.
Taking this project, Farpoint established its own plant to produce engines, but it is still unclear whether they'll make AO-25s or if they'll opt for something smaller and maybe more appropriate. The biggest advantage of such a powerful engine, which is usually used with much heavier aircraft, is the incredible range of this missile, which is reported to be 3,000 kilometers or about 1,850 miles.
They're trying to reach Moscow with these things.
This is almost double the range of the Block 5 Tomahawk missile.
Trying to hit the Kremlin.
It's more than enough to strike Russia anywhere in the European part of the country, while it could reach as far as Novosibirsk. This is an important point that we are going to return to later. That range is only claimed. Ukraine has not, at the time of recording, attempted to launch the Flamingo at such a distant target, so the claim is so far unverified. The range was not tested earlier, as Ukraine is simply not big enough of a country to test that claim. The 3,000 kilometers is a result of calculations based on the amount of fuel and the engine's consumption of it. If that claim proves true, though...
I mean, if they really want a thing tested long range, all they gotta do is go ask the USA to borrow, a little deck space on a carrier, and I'm sure any American sailor, a new missile test? I'd love to see that, let's go! And then they'll test it and send you every result for you.
It will make the FP-5 one of the world's largest and longest range ground-launched cruise missile systems. The missile travels at speeds of about 900 kilometers or 560 miles per hour, which is comparable to the speeds of Western missiles. Despite that, as we could see with the reused warheads and the reused engines, it was designed on a budget. This is further seen.
I mean,
take a look
yeah.
at the guidance system.
They looked at other similar missiles they're trying to make, and they were like, all right, now how can we fit our big-ass engine on it? We'll make the thing bigger. All right, we'll just scale everything up a bit? Yeah, let's scale it all up. Okay.
And the missile's electronics. The Flamingo
looks like what
does
they did.
Not have a complex visual guidance system such as terrain contour matching systems or digital scene matching area correlation systems, which are very common with Western missiles, which are also, of course, a lot more expensive.
I mean, the United States did invent the first, they did make the first guided bomb with a freaking pigeon. I think it was pigeons. This one of those birds that they had up in the cone of a missile, basically, and they would just peck at the target to help guide it, because they had taken these pigeons beforehand and they had them sitting in an area pecking at a certain target, and they'd get a reward for pecking at the target. And then, but the fucked up part is the reward is death.
It does, however, use satellite navigation to guide itself toward the target. The Flamingo uses a jamming-resistant controller reception pattern antenna layout, which kind of feels like word salad, doesn't it? But what it means is that the antenna layout is designed to resist radio jamming and spoofing, keeping the missile on its course. To differentiate, jamming is the disruption of GPS signals, and spoofing is the feeding of counterfeit signals to the missile to send it off course. The system uses 4 to 7 antennas arranged in a circular pattern, with each antenna receiving signals independently. These signals are then processed by a digital processor that applies predetermined algorithms to control the reception pattern. All in all, it is a cheap, but still somewhat reliable way of ensuring the missile stays on course and that enemy jammers don't affect it. This antenna system is very easy to build, which only improves production speed. However, the Flamingo lacks any technology to hide from radar, which makes it extremely unstealthy. Flying at a low altitude that follows the curvature of the landscape could keep the Flamingo safe from ground radars and anti-air weapons, but airborne radars installed aboard fighter jets are more than capable of spotting targets of that size, no matter how low they fly.
Oh, yeah.
To how the
I mean, also it's got, that super high cross section, so seeing it on the radar is very easy to just, there's something coming. Attack it there, please. Oh, and there, it's gone. Unlike, the B-2 bomber, which, it's a pretty large plane. However, it looks like a fucking bird on the radar.
A-10 Warthog is an aircraft built around a 30mm rotary cannon. The FP-5's airframe is
I love that
massive warhead. At first glance, it
I
might
love the
remind you
A-10
of the V1, but the Flamingo is
yes.
much larger.
Yes,
the length
that's
of between 12 and 14
V1, another version of a glide bomb. The first Tomahawk missile, some could say, because of how it operates. The Nazis technically invented the Tomahawk missile.
Official numbers are yet to be disclosed, though it's just a best estimate. The airframe uses a fiberglass monocoque fuselage, which creates a lightweight but still strong body that can carry a load as heavy as the 1.15-ton warhead, which again is real heavy. The body is reinforced with external ribs, and since fiberglass is radar transparent, as well as the classified materials used with the nose cone and tail fairings, the missile's radar visibility is lower in comparison to similarly sized weapons built with metal. Development and manufacturing. Ever since the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022, Ukrainian forces desperately needed a terrorizing weapon that was going to make Russia think twice before engaging any further, and they finally got it with the FP-5. So far, Ukraine has built up an arsenal of long-range missiles, but it still lacks heavy missile capacity. Up until summer of 2025, Ukraine couldn't rely on much more than Storm Shadow missiles and ATACMS as its heavy hitters.
Yeah, we gave them all the ATACMS, and as much as those can do, they don't do enough. They can't get the range, and they're huge missiles as well, so they can be shot down as well.
And it's clear that the military leadership decided to patch this hole because Ukraine is now producing the FP-5 Flamingo, as well as HRIM-2 and Caution missiles, all of which pack a very heavy punch. While Ukraine did possess missiles that could strike deep inside Russian territory, the payloads they carried were relatively small, usually between 10 and 100 kilos, which is laughably small in comparison to the Flamingo. On top of that, most of Ukraine's long-range weapons, especially its drones, are slow, which makes it easier for Russian air defenses to take them out. The Flamingo does solve the
drone tech in war is some of the freakiest stuff that's going to be crazy for the future, because you're going to have basically kids who, especially Gen Z now, the iPad generation, who grew up playing games on a tablet, just sitting there, la-di-da-di-da. And then they're gonna go into the military, and they're gonna be given basically the same size tablet. It'll be familiar to them, and then they're gonna basically feel like they're playing a video game. And as long as you tell them, hey, what you're doing here, you gotta try your absolute hardest to not get yourself killed. You have limited lives, and then you can't play no more. And then they'll understand it better, and all of a sudden you've got the best drone operators out there. Some who, maybe they have drones that fire things, and those drones that, and then there's the suicide drones. If they're in the suicide drones, look out. Gen Z will murder your ass because of their, screen time and tablet abilities. I'm at the tippy start of that generation, but I wasn't born with the tablet in my fingers.
A destruction potential issue, though. I mean, it may not be fast, and it may be large enough to be relatively easily taken down, but if just one missile passes through Russian defenses, the target could be completely destroyed, or at the very least, severely damaged. After the official unveiling on August the 17th, 2025, production rolled out at a rate of about 50 missiles a month, and Farpoint announced that they plan to increase production to 7 missiles a day by the end of the year. Experts assume that Ukraine could, in theory, scale production up to more than 2,500 Flamingos a year if they secure funding.
Hopefully.
That unveiling, by the way, is the source of the missiles.
Flamingo.
Apparently, a journalist with the Associated Press reported that the early units had a pink color because of a coloring error at the production facility. Farpoint denies these claims, but the name Flamingo seemed to stick anyway. The fact that Flamingo is a sort of Frankenstein missile only helps.
I mean, the name tank for the ground, the vehicles on the ground that have big guns on them, that literally came from the British hiding the name from their at the time still German adversary in World War I, and so that the Germans would think it's just a tank of water or something, and not be interested in finding out what this tank thing is. That's how that came to be. So yeah, I love finding out how the naming schemes for things came to be. A quote unquote ink printing at the factory made the missiles have a pink color, so they call them flamingos. That's cool.
Ukraine's cause, as Russia is known to target weapons manufacturing sites. In July of 2025, Russia conducted a successful attack of several sites used for the production of Ukrainian SAPs and ballistic missiles. The manufacturer of the Flamingo, on the other hand, doesn't need new parts that require production plants. The majority of the missile is created from already existing components that can be put together in a factory that's relatively safe. Even if the factory were to be destroyed, the Flamingo is so easy to put together, the entire manufacturing process can be moved as long as the warheads and the engines are kept safe. And Ukraine's not alone in this task either. To help streamline production, Denmark announced that a Firepoint subsidiary would start solid fuel production in Denmark by the end of the year. Denmark, which recently was the victim of a Russian drone incursion, had to suspend 20 laws and regulations to open this plant. Aside from simply scaling up production, Firepoint is working on diversifying its FP-5s. Cluster warheads are currently in development with other types.
I didn't think we were allowed to use cluster munitions anymore.
Of warheads also being planned. The question remains, though, how good is the Flamingo in practice, and how could it potentially be used? Operational history and potential use. Now, at the time of recording, there is only a single documented use of Flamingo missiles by Ukraine, and their effectiveness is, to quote the Chernobyl TV show,
okay. They're only a war crime if they get used upon a civilian population. I see. That would be where they violate some conventions. I see.
Not great, not terrible. 3 missiles. It's a nice reference.
Not great, not terrible.
3 missiles all were launched on a poorly defended target in northern Crimea, and yet only 2 arrived on site, proving the Flamingo is fairly easy to shoot down. One of the missiles that actually arrived missed the target by about 100 to 200 meters. The second missile, however, caused significant damage to the building, also damaging 6 hovercraft despite landing between 15 and 40 meters away from the target. This shows that there are still a lot of kinks for Firepoint to work through to perfect these missiles. The claimed accuracy of the Flamingo is 14 meters, but neither of the 2 missiles hit within that mark. However, the missile that hit the closest still managed to cause enough damage to deem it a successful strike, showing that the massive warhead can compensate for the lack of accuracy. Another issue that Ukraine is...
That kind of was the... not every American commander or American Navy captain did this, but some of the battleship captains, commanders, they would just be like, hey, that area, I don't like that area, get rid of it. And then they would just be firing 16-inch shells at a beachhead for 30 minutes, and then you go, okay, well, there's no more beachhead. I mean, that they took that one straight out of America's playbook. Just make your bomb go boom, bigger boom.
Sooner or later is Russia's air defense. For example, the Buryev A-50U, one of Russia's long-range radar detection and control aircraft, is equipped with the Bumblebee radar system, which could detect the Flamingo up to 200 kilometers away, giving air defenses and fighters more than enough time to intercept. This, however, could be solved by relying on the missile's incredible range. Since it can fly for so long, you could, in theory, enable indirect routing to target. Instead of picking up the shortest flight path from the launch site to the target, operators could plot a path that exploits identified gaps in Russian air defense networks and sensor coverage. This is actually something Ukrainian forces have had a lot of experience with, as they demonstrate a high level of proficiency with attack planning during their one-way attack drone campaign. Ukrainians planned their drones so well they were able to deal much more damage to Russia than anyone had expected. According to independent estimates, the damage these drones caused to Russian oil facilities has cost Russia more than $700 million from late 2024 to early 2025 alone. To add insult to injury, the FP-5 Flamingo makes the drones used in those attacks look like firecrackers. With this in mind, it's almost guaranteed that Ukraine won't be mindlessly launching Flamingos at Russia, but will instead carefully plan the flight routes to maximize their effectiveness. Just like with its questionable accuracy, the lack of survivability is also compensated by sheer explosive power. Ukraine plans to use these missiles in combined strikes. Several of them will be launched, most likely alongside other weapon systems, and Ukraine's leadership is fully expecting Russia to intercept many of them. However, if just one makes it to the target, it will most likely destroy it simply due to the devastation that the warhead can cause. A large drawback of the Flamingo when compared to some Western missiles.
Yeah, hey, if you're going to only get one strike on your target, make it the best strike you can get. So if every single shot you fire is going to be the best strike if it hits, you're going to have a great chance.
Is the long pre-launch preparation time of at least 20 minutes. You usually want your missiles to be in the air as soon as possible, as they're at their most vulnerable on the ground. The Flamingo is first and foremost preposterously large for a quick launch, and it's a brand new missile, meaning that the units using it are learning as they go, so it's expected that cruise launch times will improve over time.
Another issue arising most certainly. With the Flamingo. That is one thing that different tank operators, I'm going to use them as an example because they've had a long time, a good 100-ish years to grow and make their history, make their mark. So with tank operators, they, figured out ways to either auto-load the ammunition like the Russians, and then they have all their ammo around the top of the tank, or, the Americans just got a big group of it in the back. They, whoop, fire, and then you got enough people moving around and doing their jobs, maneuvering in a small space, but a space that is appropriate for the job at hand.
Is its price. As explained in the recently published video on the Shahed drone.
Oh yeah, I saw that one.
Take a look at if you haven't already. The great thing about it from a military perspective is that
those
the countermeasures used to shoot it down are often more expensive than the drone itself, which means that Russia wins small economical battles with its launch. The same cannot be said for the Flamingo, which is estimated to cost between $500,000 and $1 million per unit. This means that Ukraine has to rely on foreign financing to cover production, and moreover, in a practical sense, that means that if
Which, Ukraine has a lot of good raw earth in its territory to where if Ukraine is like, hey, you help us do this, and we will sell you the earth after the war is over. And it's like, yeah, you could have a whole bunch of promises, you could have a whole bunch of countries coming in, and yeah, you might have to lose a bunch of your resources, but as long as you are smart about it and don't sell 100% of them, because that would be stupid and beyond retarded and get you removed from your seat of power more than immediately. So you don't want to do that, but you could definitely make, deals and work out things with other nations and be like, hey, I have this. Do you have the ability to process it? Do you want to buy it? In exchange, I want from you just some money right now so I can build my missiles to defend my country. And then you'll wind up getting all the material you want from that thing, basically, up to X amount of percent. And then they're like, yeah, actually, that sounds great. Here's some money.
Pathetically, 4 out of 5 Flamingos make it to target during an attack. Ukraine is effectively spending $4 million on 4 decoys. However, if that single Flamingo destroys a crucial enemy structure, such as a missile depot, the accumulated $5 million price tag might be worth it. Russia's got an arsenal of countermeasures for missiles just like the Flamingo. This includes the MiG-31B aircraft, the fastest known combat aircraft capable of both look-up and look-down engagement, more or less specializing in intercepting low-flying cruise missiles. A 4-bird squadron of these can oversee a 600-kilometer-wide line in Russian airspace, and they could easily destroy any Flamingo that tries to break through. And speaking of destruction, because of its warhead, there's a lot of pressure on the Flamingo's wings. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called it the most successful weapon in Ukraine's arsenal to date after its successful trial launch, and according to Farpoint officials, the warhead can pierce at least 2 meters of concrete and can penetrate at least 10 meters underground. It's capable of this because it uses a bunker buster warhead, which was mentioned earlier and the name implies.
I love these tests that they do with bunker buster weaponry. They are just incredible. The MOAP that they dropped on Iran back in the summer, that was an awesome thing to see. Getting to see the, testing behind that was pretty cool. Maybe I'll find a video and react to it later.
Designed to penetrate hardened targets.
I think that was it.
The warhead used with the Flamingo.
And never mind, I guess I don't need to.
Weaker modern bunker buster warheads, as it can only penetrate through 2 meters of concrete. In comparison, the American BLU-127, also known by the sketchy name Massive Ordnance Penetrator, can break through 18 meters of reinforced concrete. Holy shit! That's about
yeah. That's why we used it.
6 building floors under the ground. Modern bunker busters are also helped by the extra speed provided by the engine, which generates a greater penetrative force.
Ooh. I'm gonna slow this down. And then you can watch. There's some fins at the rear of the missile. And watch what happens when they, as soon as it penetrates.
By the engine.
All of a sudden, they start to fold in. That's neat. They fold in so that they're not as wide out to get in the ground. That's, even though it probably wouldn't really make that big a difference. Just a neat little detail that they went and included. I would have just designed them to just, as soon as it penetrates, go boop, and just break away. And so that's the only thing that's left above ground, if the ground is still intact after it explodes.
Generates a greater penetrative force. Now, with this in mind, the Flamingo will most likely be used for two purposes. Its intended purpose is, of course, to destroy armored and well-fortified structures such as bunkers, silos, and depots. The other intended purpose is the destruction of large compounds, plants, and factories, which may not be fortified, but they are large enough to require a huge explosion to destroy, and they may be far enough to warrant the use of Ukraine's longest-range weapon. Valery Romanenko, a leading aviation expert and researcher with the Ukrainian State Museum of Aviation, says that upon exploding, the Flamingo will destroy any production plant. The facility will be impossible to rebuild because the explosion will result in complete destruction, leaving behind itself a 20-meter crater. He believes that the Flamingo's preferred targets are going to be Russian oil refineries. Ryazan and Kostovo refineries, which are Russia's third and fourth largest respectively, are well within the Flamingo's range. In fact, 7 of Russia's 10 biggest oil refineries are within Flamingo's claimed 3,000-kilometer range. Now we must return to what we said before about the Flamingo's alleged capacity of reaching Novosibirsk. It's interesting how all of the news outlets used Novosibirsk as the designation point of the Flamingo's range capabilities, because Novosibirsk just happens to be close to Bielsk, the home of the Bielsk Allium plant. The Bielsk Allium plant is Russia's largest producer of military-grade explosives and artillery shells. Every month, Russia supplies its forces with about 120,000 artillery.
Well, that would put a damper in Russian artillery to lose 120,000 shells a month.
Shells, and normally these shells are produced in Nizhny Novgorod, which is about 1,300 kilometers away.
Oh, how about that? A lot closer. Another spot these missiles could hit.
By road from Ukrainian borders, which means that the shipments are well within the reach of Ukrainian weapon systems. Because of this, Moscow decided to move their production to the Bielsk Allium plant, thinking that production there would be safe. Cue the Flamingo, a huge missile that could, in theory, destroy the entire plant with one strike and a 3,000-kilometer range. Bielsk is just outside of the Flamingo's range by a few hundred kilometers, but both Ukrainian and Russian forces are well aware that the Flamingo is a huge threat for this production plant. What if the Ukrainians managed to break through and launch from further inland? What if they launched the Flamingos at the train convoys? These are the questions that Russian logisticians are asking themselves at this very moment, and this was ultimately one of Ukraine's biggest goals in a war that's been largely defined by the destruction of supply routes, depots, and production plants over the last year. Ukraine had previously used old Soviet drones such as...
That's another thing. When you get a missile launch of something, any kind of missile like this, you have this trail that leaves out of smoke for a minute. So if you've got any, air assets up or anything scanning, you can find out the missile launch sites too. And so if these missiles aren't being launched from a mobile launcher, the missile launch sites could be in danger of being fired upon too.
The Tu-143 and modified aircraft such as the A-22 Foxbat to penetrate more than 1,000 kilometers into Russian airspace. The Flamingo could potentially penetrate 3 times deeper, which means that Russia could lose the advantage of territorial depth, something the country has been relying on ever since the start of the war. The Bielsk Allium plant isn't the only arms manufacturing factory at risk. Shahed drones, which Russia has adopted from Iran, are produced in Yelaburga and Izhsev factories, which are well within range for the FP-5, and the same can be said for the Arshink missile factory in Votkinsk. In fact, 90% of Russia's defense industry is within the Flamingo's range, and according to Romanenko, this will create a strategic imbalance in Ukrainian favor. Quoting him, "The Ukrainian rear areas that are unreachable for Russian attacks are protected by Europe, but Ukraine, for its part, obtains the capability to destroy virtually any defense industrial facility on the Russian territory. This entails a fundamental change in the balance of power." Despite that, experts warn against blind excessive optimism, as there are yet a lot of things to work through. The Flamingo is still very vulnerable.
Production, that's something that it needs to be. And they need money to put these things together. They need, the skills of people to be able to fire them and make sure they can, avoid all the Russian detection systems and avoid being detected. Because if every shot you fire at a target is, taken out, there goes, millions of dollars down the drain.
It's easy to detect and slow enough for most Russian air defense systems to shoot down. Ukrainian aviation experts agree that Russian systems will intercept the majority of missiles, but since no system guarantees complete protection, even that single missile breaking through could be a big problem. Even if 5 out of 50 missiles reach the target, that's enough to destroy 3 large Russian enterprises, such as refineries or weapons plants. The key to the Flamingo's success will be the reliance on combined weapon attacks and sheer numbers of other drones.
Yeah, they need to send a lot of other different things that are cheaper, smaller, maybe different targets at it so that they can distract and then allow these larger things to get in and hopefully try to sneak in around the radar as much as they can.
And missiles to be used as decoys. However, how well Ukrainian forces use this new weapon is a question that only time will answer. Thank you for watching.
Fantastic video there. I love learning about military tech, and the last time I think we had a really huge increase, or rather the largest increase in military tech in history has got to be during World War II. Of all the crazy shit that was tried during that time period, it's insane. I love covering all that stuff. I love covering some of this too, so we'll get around to it and do all of it eventually. We'll probably jump back and find some World War II stuff I don't even know yet, because there's still so much from that era that it just is insane. Anyways, if you didn't already, smash that like button and get subscribed for more. I got 2 videos coming out every single day, every day of the week, every day of the month, every day of the year. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one.